The name's Bond. James Bond.
What's up and welcome to part 3, the final part of James Bond Ranked, where I'm going through all the James Bond movies, ranking them from worst to best. We are now in the top 8, which will be the number 1 James Bond movie in my opinion. Well, in case you've missed it, here's the ranking so far. 24, Diamonds Are Forever. 23, Die Another Day. 22, Octopussy. 21, For Your Eyes Only. 20, Thunderball. 19, A View to a Kill. 18, Live and Let Die. 17, Moonraker. 16, Dr. No. 15, License to Kill. 14, You Only Live Twice. 13, The World Is Not Enough. 12, Spectre. 11, Quantum of Solace. 10, The Spy Who Loved Me. 9, The Living Daylights.
Darling, I'm killed.
Pretend that it's not 2020 and you're having a slow news day. What would you do? Well, this film makes it pretty clear. You go out, you murder a bunch of people so that you can be the first person to report the news. Great idea! In fact, this film was based on real people and real events that hit the news. But I have to imagine it kind of exaggerated things a bit. This film is super fun. It has Jonathan Pryce as a interesting, different kind of bad guy.
Delicious.
Michelle Yeoh as a Bond girl, and an interesting story. Is it all that believable and convincing? Not really, but then so few of the Bond films actually are when you sit down and think about them. At the end of the day, this is an enjoyable film and the basic idea and premise was pretty cool.
Goldfinger, he's the man.
Goldfinger, the first Bond movie named after the bad guy. This was also the first Bond movie that really nailed down and established what the formula for this franchise would be. There's an iconic bad guy, a cool opening sequence, an intimidating, threatening henchman, gadgets, cool cars, a Bond girl, and it had the first ever use of a Bond song in the title sequence. This film set the tone for what Bond would end up being. It also cast an at the time famous German actor as the bad guy. Only the producers didn't do their research, and when he showed up on the first day of filming they found out he couldn't speak a word of English. So, one of the most iconic bad guys is actually played by two people. You've got the guy playing him physically, but you've also got someone dubbing him over with an English voice. Oh well, it still works.
He has a powerful weapon. He charges a million a shot. An assassin that's second to none. The man with the golden gun.
I might get some flack for this one, because The Man with the Golden Gun is often considered to be one of the worst Bond movies. But I actually really kind of like this one. This is another example of the film being titled after the iconic bad guy, the man with the golden gun, this time played by the iconic legendary Christopher Lee. What I really like about this film is that it twists things around. This time around it's the bad guy that has the girls, the nice suits, the outfits, the charming, cool swagger, the gun, and a car that flies.
To us, Mr. Bond, we are the best.
It's essentially an evil version of James Bond, and I love it. And it ends with a face-off between James Bond and the man with the golden gun, Francisco Scaramanga, in a funhouse-style hall of mirrors. This is a sequence that has been mimicked and copied in numerous films since then, because this one was so iconic. Films like John Wick 2 and 3 flat out just copied it. And in my eyes, that's high praise. When Timothy Dalton left the role of James Bond, the franchise went on a bit of hiatus. It didn't come back, in fact, until the mid-90s, at which point they cast Pierce Brosnan and brought in the brilliant Judi Dench.
You don't like me, Bond. You don't like my methods. You think I'm an accountant. A bean counter more interested in my numbers than your instincts.
The thought had occurred to me.
Good. Because I think you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur. A relic of the Cold War. Whose boyish charms, though wasted on me, obviously appeal to that young woman I sent out to evaluate you.
Point taken.
Not quite, 007. If you think for one moment I don't have the balls to send a man out to die, your instincts are dead wrong. I've no compunction about sending you to your death. But I won't do it on a whim, even with your cavalier attitude towards life.
GoldenEye was a real return to form for the franchise at that time. It brought Bond back to being this cool, charming, fun guy, which was in stark contrast to the more moody, broody Timothy Dalton ways. In many ways, Pierce Brosnan's iteration of the character is somewhere between Sean Connery's and Roger Moore's. With great action scenes, a brilliant villain played by Sean Bean, who, yeah, of course he dies, some interesting quirky henchman characters, one of which can kill people with her thighs, GoldenEye is one of the most fun, enjoyable Bond films in the entire franchise. From Russia with Love is probably the Bond film that sticks to being a spy film more than any other. In fact, there aren't that many action scenes in this film, but it does have one of the best action scenes ever put to film in my opinion, on board the Orient Express. has great tension, thrills, trickery, twists. There's a woman who has a knife in her foot. And of course, one of the main villains of the film is called Grant. So that's a plus in my book. Before I go into what is my top 3, I just want to say that this top 3 was really tough to establish. One of them is one of my favourite films of all time. The other 2 are just really well made movies that had to be up high in this ranking. In short, any other day of the week I could probably rank these films and the top 3 could be easily shifted around in different order. It's that close.
This never happened to the other fella.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service is one of the most overlooked and forgotten about Bond films in the entire franchise, despite also being one of the best. I love this film, and I'm constantly trying to tell people just how good it is. We've had a charming, suave Bond, a cheeky, cheesy Bond, a moody, broody Bond, a gritty and grounded Bond. And now George Lazenby gives us the rockstar Bond. This iteration of the character is cocky and arrogant. He's not the best iteration of Bond in my opinion, but he is what it is. Considering George Lazenby wasn't an actor really before this film, considering this is his first feature film, I think he does a pretty good job. He's certainly not bad. Also, who loves you baby? Kojak himself, Telly Savalas, comes in to play Blofeld, and in my opinion, the best depiction of Blofeld. This time around, he's not only a mental match for James Bond, but a physical one too. Then there's the ending. By far the saddest, most iconic and best ending to a Bond film ever. So much so they tried to copy it in Casino Royale, giving it a little twist and shaking things up a little bit. But even that film couldn't top the ending of this one. I also want to give a shout out to the editing. It seems like almost every action scene in this film has like a frame or two cut out of it, making it look very frenetic, very fast paced, very exciting. It's really interesting and unique. Not many films do this. Speaking of the action scenes, a fun bit of trivia here. George Lazenby, working on his first ever film, didn't realise that in the action scenes you don't actually punch the other person. The stuntman found out that the hard way. Bottom line, this is one of the best, most influential Bond films ever made. Christopher Nolan, arguably one of the best filmmakers working today, says this is one of his favourite films, and he flat out copied sequences and moments from this movie when he made Inception. Seriously, give this film a go if you haven't already.
Grant Burton says he can run through walls. He has a pain in his balls. His name is James Bond.
Okay. Nailed it.
After Die Another Day, the Bond franchise was in a tough place. They had gone too far and they had gone too silly. So the only thing they could do was take things back several steps and go back to square one. So they got the rights to the original Casino Royale book back. They then decided to go for a more gritty, grounded and realistic approach to things, and they reinvented the Bond character for modern audiences. They then cast Daniel Craig as James Bond, becoming the first blonde Bond. Somehow though, they forgot to tell Pierce Brosnan that he had been fired from the role of James Bond. Seriously, Pierce Brosnan found out he was no longer James Bond when at some sort of public event Daniel Craig approached him and asked for advice on playing the character. Awkward. Anyhow, Daniel Craig ended up being the most believable and likeable and human James Bond of the lot. There are some really great, cool action scenes and a very tense, thrilling poker scene. It also made a star out of Mads Mikkelsen, so that's great.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Tell me what you know of James Bond.
He's a 00 and a wild one.
Charming, sophisticated secret agent. Who is also licensed to kill.
You noticed. How long have I got?
30 seconds.
Well, that doesn't give us a lot of time, does it?
This is the end. Hold your breath and count to 10. Feel the earth move.
After 2 films, once Daniel Craig's Bond was established, it was time to have some fun. That's when Skyfall came along. This was the 50th anniversary of the James Bond franchise, so Skyfall came along as a sort of celebration of the franchise up to that point. It has references, hints and homages to pretty much every James Bond film up to that point. Judi Dench finally stepped up to play a Bond girl properly this time. Javier Bardem was cast as a creepy, twisted bad guy with a really personal motivation and goal. We also got new, younger iterations of Q and Moneypenny too. In many ways this film probably did too much, but it did it quite well. Arguably, it's also probably the best looking James Bond film thanks to the cinematography by Roger Deakins and Sam Mendes as director. And it has that brilliant Adele song as the Bond song. This is the Bond film for Bond fans, so it had to be number 1. That's it. That's our 3-week ranking of the Bond films complete. Bond will be back. Fingers crossed, hopefully at the end of the year. But Bond will also be back after that. But will it be a woman? Will it be Idris Elba? Will it be Tom Hiddleston, Vinnie Jones, Meryl Streep? The possibilities are endless. Not really. Let's be honest, it's probably going to be an English or a near enough English white guy. If you've liked this video and you've liked this series, I'd really recommend you subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, you'll get much more content, a lot of content like this. And of course, I really appreciate it in the process. You can also go over to Twitter and Instagram and follow me at @the_Grant Burton if you want. Until next time though, thanks for watching.